Hey everybody, welcome back to the BigRigCompliance YouTube channel. Today we are going to go through an example out of a logbook related to 24-hour periods and 7-hour continuous rest. As always, we're going to start with the law and then go through some examples and then talk about some suggestions. Now, if you're wondering who I am, my name is Mitchell Turner. I run BigRigCompliance, which is a consulting and auditing company. I'm an NHVR approved auditor. I'm a Cert 4 registered trainer. I do WA auditing, a bit of truck safe, and a lot of consulting in heavy vehicle national law and chain of responsibility. I'm trying to put out videos once a month, free for industry, just going over problems that I see commonly, and hopefully you guys can share this, you can learn from this, and hopefully it builds some brand awareness and it pays out for me. So let's jump into this example straight away. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our work diary examples and we're just going to look at the work and rest. We don't need all of the locations or the signatures or anything for this example. We're just looking at the hours worked. I use the work diary example because this is something that everybody is familiar with, at least in the eastern states, or at least something that as many people are familiar with as possible. In this example, we're going to assume that the driver in question has had heaps of time off before day one and heaps of time off after day two. So we're only looking at these 2 days or calendar days alone. We're not looking at any of the other hours before or after. Now, here's the example, and I've just logged in the work that's been undertaken and the total work and rest hours. So day one at the top, we can see the driver has started at midday noon and they've done 8 hours work, and the work is very spotty. So in this situation, the driver was a market runner and they obviously had a deadline to deliver by. And unfortunately, they had a lot of delays with loading, sitting in line, whatever it might be. We also see this situation arise either when there's split work through the day, so unexpected work comes up in the afternoon and there's a large gap there, or when there's breakdowns. So this sort of situation generally arises when the driver isn't able to have a clean run at getting their 12 or 14 hours work in. So now we're just going to run over the law. Now, this driver, this example, we're on standard work hours, and you can see up here that we're using the NHVR website to source this information from. This is often a little bit easier than looking at the heavy vehicle national law, and I think this is adequate enough to prove that what I'm talking about is real. So the important thing we're going to talk about here is in any period of 24 hours, we must have 7 hours continuous stationary rest time. So in any period of 24 hours, we must have 7 hours rest time continuous stationary. Now, the important thing here, which we'll get into, is that it isn't you must start, you must have, which means you must start and complete the 7 hours. Now, the other thing we're going to look at is what is a 24-hour period? Now, I've covered this in some of my early videos. A 24-hour period for any normal person is a calendar day. Unfortunately for a truck driver, a 24-hour period has a legal definition, which is a little bit different. So all I say whenever I do any training is I say, hey, it doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. It just is. And we need to accept that because this is regulated by law, that terms that we might make assumptions about, like a 24-hour period, have a legal definition. So if we go to counting time, we're going to talk about the rules for counting a period of 24 hours or more. Again, we're on the NHVR website here. So 24 hours or more are counted forward from the end of a relevant major rest break. So for standard 2-up, we're talking about a rest break of 7 hours or more. Generally speaking, we're talking about a 7-hour continuous rest break or bigger, so 24 hours off or whatever, or 9 or 10. The reason that we use the wording relevant major rest break is because 2-up drivers are not required to have a 7, they're allowed to have a 5. And then drivers that are on AFM, well, their relevant major rest period could be anything because it depends on the particular company and the approval. Generally speaking, we're going to be talking about a 7-hour standard continuous stationary rest break. Now, shameless self-plug. This is my YouTube at BigRigCompliance, or you can just search BigRigCompliance up here. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and click the little icon that says all, and you'll get alerts when I run these new videos. You can also check me out on Facebook, and you can also check out bigrigcompliance.com or .com.au. Both of them are me. All right, so let's go back to this work diary example now. So first things first, we're on standard work rest, and that means we're allowed to work 12 hours. And we can see on day 1, we've done 8 hours. And on the second day, we've done 4 hours. So we're at the maximum of our 12 hours. And we also know that we have to have 7 hours continuous stationary rest within a 24-hour period. So our 24-hour period on these pages starts at the end of a relevant major rest break. Because this driver is using standard solo, then the end of the rest break is the end of a rest that's 7 hours or more. Now remember, we've done no work the day prior, no work afterwards. So when looking at this example, the red line is the beginning of our 24-hour period, which is noon, midday, day 1. And the 24-hour period will go to noon the day after, day 2, so noon, midday. Within this period, we must have no more than 12 hours work if we're working on standard solo, and we must have a 7-hour continuous stationary rest. Now, this driver was under the impression that you can work 12 in 24, and then you have 7 hours rest, and then you reset. In the law, there's not really anything, there's no such thing as resetting. You could be considered to reset if you had 48 hours off, but there's no reset. 24-hour periods can overlap, and I even had an example recently of a man who had a period of his work counted in 3 different 24-hour periods, and that's a topic for another day. But I think what we can agree with here, and here's the example, we've highlighted in red the 24-hour period, and we've crossed out the time after and before because that's not relevant to this 24-hour period. And what we can see here is while the driver has worked 12 hours, so they're legal, and they've had all of their smaller rests, so your 15 minutes and half-hour rests at the correct time, we can see from 6 a.m. on day 2 until noon midday is only 6 hours rest. So the driver, even though they've begun their 7-hour continuous stationary rest, which is from 6 a.m. until 1 p.m., they've begun their 7-hour rest, but they have not completed it within the 24-hour period. So this driver received the breach from their employer. They received it in a printout from a work diary reviewing software, either Work Diary Mate or Log Checker. And unfortunately, the person that undertook the review was just doing data entry and was not able to explain why the driver breached to the driver. The driver's been driving heavy vehicles for about 2.5 years. The driver unfortunately felt the need to go to Facebook to ask for advice, which is where I contacted him directly and had a bit of a phone call, had a chat and explained the situation. All right, in closing, what we want to say is what do we do when this occurs? First things first, going to Facebook for advice is not what I would ever recommend. It is very difficult to get advice out there and to get some clarity. Reaching out to myself or people like me is a good start. I believe that this driver may now be going to court for either this work diary page or something similar. They've contacted me and let me know that the regulator's requesting pages and that they may be headed to court. What we normally do in this stage or this situation is we want to prepare a incident report internally inside the company where we look at everything that has occurred and contributed to the situation. So we're going to look at whether the schedule's legal, what training the driver was provided, and the competency of all the staff in the system. And whether this is a recurring problem, whether we have to go talk to the clients and consigners about it, what we do. Normally, if we're talking about a standard 12-hour book, the first recommendation will be to go to BFM, which gives us a 14-hour book. With BFM also comes driver medicals and external driver training with registered training organisations. It also brings in training with schedulers, and it puts in place externally audited processes that NHVR Auditor approved as such. So we can go to court and we can show a judge that we've taken a lot of steps to try to be better and try to learn. We can also look at internal training for the data entry or the internal reviewers, we call them, the people putting this information into Log Checker or Work Diary Mate, something like that. We can look at big driver training sessions where drivers bring in their own work diaries and we talk about the law and do a big training session, but then we also have a lot of high quality interaction about specific problems at the end. I can come in and do work diary reviewing directly. I'm doing that for a client this afternoon. We can do a lot of things. The other final thing that's not bad, which is a growing area, is electronic work diaries. Now, every time a new electronic work diary is launched, they contact all the auditors via the list of auditors on the NHVR website, and they try to spruik it. I've always held off on getting involved with any of them because, to be honest, I've always felt that the logbooks, electronic logbooks, need to be a ground-up, driver-focused software that empowers drivers and gives them assistance, where a lot of the electronic logbooks, when I speak to the people that create them, they can't answer my questions or they just want to tell me how other companies are signed up. They can't actually sell the logbook on its own merit, or they want me to sign up to say that I'll only sell their logbook and no other competitors. Now, myself, I want to make sure that I'm selling the product that suits the business and the client and the drivers, the personalities, the requirements. I just don't want to sell one product. So Logmaster is the electronic work diary that I'm going to be recommending to this driver to have a look at because I don't know whether his company will engage myself because they're interstate to come and do training and BFM and all those things. Logmaster, like Logbook Checker and logbook checking software, Work Diary Mate's one that's free, that's an app, not an electronic work diary, not approved, but it is logbook checking software. And you can enter your logbook in it as you go. They give you a free trial for a week or two, I believe, but after that it's paid. This style software is how I started learning about logbooks. It is very good. However, nowadays I'd say just go for an electronic work diary, because then you're not doing a paper work diary and an electronic application. You're just doing it together as one, and you're getting real time feedback. And hopefully, getting that real time feedback as you go will help you learn, or at least identify things where you go, hey, this doesn't make sense. Let's ring Mitchum and ask him why the logbook's telling me that I'm running out of hours when I think I'm good. So, yeah, look, this is what we're going to say for this driver. We're going to say work on the Logmaster electronic work diary, get him up to speed on that. Now, the regulator, apparently he called the call center and asked for advice, and they shooed him away for using Work Diary Mate or Logbook Checker. Their reason for shooing him away is because they're not approved applications, but they're not meant to be. The electronic work diary needs to be an approved application. Logbook Checker and Work Diary Mate are just apps to check the logbook. They're not meant to be electronic logbooks. So that was a bit of a bum steer, in my opinion. But I can also see why the call centre may have said that, because they might not be familiar with exactly what those softwares are. So we're going to suggest that the driver gets the Logmaster electronic work diary. He's used electronic work diaries before, so we're going to get him back on it. He really liked it. And we're also going to talk to him about telling his employer to give me a call about BFM, 14-hour logbooks, some internal training. Even if they're interstate, I can facilitate a lot of that, the consulting, and organise auditors to come out on site. And hopefully when the driver goes to court, we've seen that if we're able to present all of the things that we've done to try to learn, that we have seen relative leniency. We've seen fines between $500, $700 up to about $1,200, $1,300. And we haven't seen, with those fines, we haven't seen anything added. When you're turning up and you don't have this support, you don't have the actions that you've taken, we have seen judges impose mandatory electronic work diaries. We've seen judges impose mandatory training with a professional of some sort. Having those things imposed on you by the court means that if you don't go and then do them, or you don't do them in a certain timeline, that you are breaking the law and you can get in even more trouble. And it is always better to take these steps proactively and be able to go to court and present what you've done and have some confidence that you're trying your best to do the right thing. If you're still watching, thank you very much for getting this far. I hope that this video has been of a lot of help. I'm looking to do these at least one per month for the rest of 2025 ongoing. We've got 44 subscribers on the channel now. Some of the videos have had 200, 300, 400 views. It isn't a lot in terms of the people out there in the industry, but it's a lot for a little old bloke just putting up some videos in his house basement. Thank you very much again. Please check me out. LinkedIn, Mitchum Turner, BigRigCompliance on YouTube, on Facebook, and bigrigcompliance.com.au. You can see on the thing up here. Or .com is my website. And of course, there's also the phone number. You can get me directly if you need some consulting services, auditing, anything regarding safety management systems or heavy vehicle law. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the next video.